Hi everyone, PJ Clanton with Entegra Coach Motorized Technical Training. Today we're going to do a delivery walkthrough of a 2025 Aspire. So if you're ready, let's get started. Starting right at the front of the coach, we're just going to go through our entire delivery form. This is what we want our dealerships to do with our customers, just walking you through what's in the coach, how it's set up, and how it operates. So we're going to start right here with the keyless entry. With the keyless entry system, it will have a programmable code. You will want to program your own 5-digit code. So you can program your code in there, that will give you the unlock. It has a default code to it. Simply to lock the door, press and hold the 1. It will click, you hear the chirp, that's the alarm setting. To unlock that door, you would put in your 5-digit access code, followed by the 1 button, which would open your entry door. Or if you had the electric cargo doors, you would do your 5-digit access code and press the 2 button that will do all of your doors. So we're just going to go ahead and do the unlock process here. Press and release that 1 time. We've now unlocked the entire coach and disarmed that alarm. All right, so that's your keyless entry. There are a couple things you will want to have that set. Ask your dealership to help you set that personal access code, the 5-digit access code. You will want your dealership to help you with that. If you have any questions, you can always call us as well, and our customer service team will walk you through how you set that up. We're going to go ahead and move back down the coach here. We'll start in the cargo door number 1. Basically, we're just going to take this and walk all the way around the coach and show you everything that's in it and the key things that you'll need to know, kind of where we hide some things, things that you'll need to be looking at. So inside door number 1, you're going to find a small remote control that's going to be up here in this front corner. That smaller remote control looks like the original iPod. That is for your Girard awnings. So simply by turning that on, we can adjust or select our channel. So channel 1 is going to be your front awning. If we put that to channel 2, that's going to be the rear awning. And all you do is press the in or the out, depending on what you're wanting to do. Now you will have to hold that button to get it to go in. So hold it for about 3 seconds, and that starts the operation, and that will continue to go in. There are limit switches in the awnings, so they will run until they've reached their full extension, and then they will stop on their own. So you don't have to worry about holding this button, making sure it comes in or out. Your awnings are also equipped with a wind sensor. So not that we're going to count on the wind sensor as our fail-safe, all right? We still want to make sure that we're paying attention to our weather. We don't want those awnings out in high winds, rains, anything like that. It's not an umbrella. It's meant for sunshade only. So you'll want to make sure that you run those things in accordingly, because they may not go in time before the wind or the rain would come up and cause some damage to those, all right? We're going to put that remote right back in the cradle here. We're going to move back here to the next door. So inside door number 2, you're going to have your cargo tray. This is a manual cargo tray. It does have a label on it that gives us the exact weight capacity. So we want to make sure we're paying attention to that. Just pulling up on this blue lever, sliding this out, it will come about 80% extension. The other thing is the weight limitation. So this particular tray, the manual tray, is 800 pounds capacity, and that's evenly distributed. So we want to make sure that we're not putting 600 pounds of tools here on this side and a couple of cardboard boxes of paper towels, or our totes on the other side of paper towels and toilet paper. That's kind of off balance. We're going to cause some extra wear and tear on the bearings on this. We really want that to be 800 pounds evenly distributed, so that's something to keep in mind. To run this back in, it's just going to roll right back in place. This will come up and lock in place, so you'll see that lift up, and there it is locked in place. Always want to make sure that we have that locked in place before we travel. Let's move just right up above here. On the outside here, yep, there we go. The exterior TV. So on the exterior TV, we have a sound system out here as well. You have the JBL sound system, the 2 speakers off to the side, and you have a 110 outlet here. That's for you to plug in anything that you would want to plug in. Maybe you're going to charge a cell phone or an iPod. That does have Bluetooth capability to here. You can also run your inside radio, so your Sirius radio can be sent to this as well. On the TV itself, this is on a swivel and a tilt. So we can take this out, and you can swivel this and tilt it down, so that gets you away from that sun. If you have the reflection of the sun, or you're facing a different direction, you can bring this out and slide this wherever you need it. So cool little feature there. There is something kind of hidden down in here that we have, and I'll say this is for all the short people. I don't have this problem normally, but this right here was a customer request because a lot of people can't reach this door after it's up, So for the vertically challenged, that would be this right here. gives you the ability to grab a hold of this, reach in and do this. There are some brackets down here that this snaps into, so you can just snap that back into place, and then you can close the door back up. All right, so moving back to our next bay right here, this is just going to be pass-through storage. So basically, storage compartment here, there is going to be something in here that you may want to be looking at, and that is if you have a satellite system. If you put in that satellite system, your power inserter for your Traveler satellite system is going to be inside, accessible in that door. You can also access that from this door as well. So in this particular compartment, there's going to be several things that we're going to cover. First, it's going to be these battery disconnects here. Then we have a battery disconnect inside there for the inverter. And then the panel just on the inside of that door there is full of all kinds of electrical stuff. We're going to look at fuses, mini breakers, things of that nature. We'll take a look in there, show you the labels, and show where you can access those particular fuses and breakers. The other thing that's here is your solar controller. That's this box right here. That is for the solar system. You're generally just going to see lights on that. It's going to give us a status. We will mainly be looking at what that is doing from our Firefly screen on the inside. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. So let's go ahead and get inside this compartment here, and let's look inside this carpeted panel to see what's behind there. So inside this compartment, this is that carpeted panel we were talking about. This is just Velcroed in place. So if you pull this out, kind of give this a little bit of a twist, it does come down out of here. We'll get this out of the way. So there is a label on the back of this. That's this black label right here that is defining all of this controller here. The other thing that we're looking at in here are these two fuse panels. So we've got a fuse panel here, and then these mini stop or short stop breakers right here. Those you may have to access in the future, maybe if you're working with us troubleshooting anything, but it's good to know exactly where all of those power sources are coming from. These guys right here are going to be our solenoids. So this is our battery disconnect. When you flip off your main power switch in the entry step with a little red light, that is going to turn this one off. And this guy right here is our battery isolator. That's what charges our house batteries and our chassis batteries, both while we're driving or while we're parked. We can charge the other bank of batteries. This also controls that emergency start switch, the battery boost switch that's in the driver's side console. So we'll talk about that when we get inside. Other than that, you're going to have your power and ground here. And this controller, like I said, with a label here, that is the M1 from Firefly. You will maybe need to know where that is. All of our network connections are right here for that system. So if you do any troubleshooting with them, that's good to know exactly where this is at. All right, in the next compartment back here, past our electrical compartment, this is going to be the freshwater tank. You're going to see that you can visually see the tank right here, so that will give you another way to look at the water level in there. This is our gravity fill, so you can fill your freshwater tank from this side as well. Maybe a little bit faster to fill from there. The one thing you have to understand about this, when you use this, you are not filtering that before it goes into the tank. So you could end up with a little bit of sediment in the bottom of the tank. Not to worry though, before you use any water out of the tank, it does go through that whole house filter again. So it should filter any of that out if it picks it up. One thing to remember about the freshwater tank, they are 100-gallon capacity. You're only going to have about 92 gallons of usable water, and that is because of the pickup tube. We do the pickup tube off of the side instead of off of the bottom. That way, if there is any sediment in there, you're not pulling that into your system. So that is a bonus. All right, we're going to move back here to the back. The next compartment right here, this small door, this is going to be your DEF fill. So this is for that DEF fluid there. And all of our floor plans now in 2025 have dual DEF fill, so we will have a DEF fill on the other side as well. We'll talk about that. There is another panel in here that has a label on it. That is going to be your valid air leveling Schrader valve. So in the event something happens where the electronic system of the air leveling system is not working, we can manually come back here and air up each one of the bags. So each axle has its own air bag. We can air each one of those up manually through this, especially if you're in an event where the coach had to be towed, anything like that, you would be able to manually air those bags up to get it off the road safely. Another thing that's in here is a small little lanyard. I don't know if you'll be able to pick this up on the audio or not, but if I pull this lanyard, you hear a little bit of air seeping out of the other side. So what that's going to is your auxiliary brake tank. So this has the safe haul brake on it, and that is the holding tank for that air pressure that goes to that auxiliary tank. That is no different than anything else on the chassis when it comes to maintaining that air system. you will need to be pulling that lanyard on a regular basis. So just remember that. We want to get the moisture out of those tanks. All right, we'll move back here to the next compartment. This is going to be kind of your service bay for the chassis. You're going to have your chassis batteries. There are some fuses and breakers in here that we want to make mention. These two breakers mainly are going to be 120 amp here and 150 amp. So this 120 amp is what goes to the house. That's what gives us our ability to charge from the engine to the house batteries, or charge from the inverter charger to the chassis batteries. This top one here, 150 amp, that is for the starting of the coach. If we turn this off, you cannot start the coach. So that was put in there for the technician's safety. Anytime we're working on the engine, we want to have that breaker off. That prevents us from starting the coach. Fuse panel is this guy right here. It is just a 1/4 inch turn, and then that comes off. It does have a label on the inside, so we're just going to take a look at that real quick. Small 1/4 inch turn, and it is labeled here on the inside, and you're going to have all your fuses and relays there for the chassis. So what's important about this to know is that that is going to house your trailer brake and your turn signals for a trailer or a tow vehicle. So anytime you're looking at issues for that, that is where you would want to be looking at as well. The rest of those are just filters. These are going to be on a regular maintenance schedule. We would want you to check with your chassis manufacturer and get their time frame of when those need to be maintained. So we're going to take a second here and open the engine compartment. We're going to use this switch right here, and that will allow us to open this back engine compartment. So we're going to raise this back engine door. As we're waiting for that, we're going to talk about a few things that are in the engine. So we'll cover the block heater, which is a plug-in back here. We're also going to look at the fluid levels and where you would check those fluids. There's an air minder gauge back here for your air filter. We'll just go over a couple things here, look at the hitch and the safe haul connection as well. So there, when that's all the way up, we're looking at some of the things here in the engine compartment. Obviously, we're going to be looking at our filling areas: oil, coolant, hydraulic fluid, transmission. This is the oil dipstick. Again, there's other ways to check things. There's a dipstick on this as well. So we'll go through some of those processes as well. But the most important thing is here, we want to be able to look at this sight glass and see that there is antifreeze or coolant in here. Now we are using final charge on this, so we want to make sure that the final charge is there. We want to make sure that that is covered. Your hydraulic is going to be for your steering and for other various things here in the chassis. This guy right here is for your engine block heater. So we would simply open that up. This has got a little plug here. This would plug in, and that would turn on your engine block heater. Now, when do you need to use that engine block heater? Well, kind of goes like this. On an Aspire here, we're going to use that engine block heater if we are in sub-zero temperatures. So anytime we would get in sub-zero temperatures, we would want to plug that in. The one thing you have to remember is that block heater is only powered when you're plugged into shore power or you have the generator running. That is not on an inverted circuit for just reasons. We don't want to run your batteries down. So remember that, sub-zero temperatures, we'll want to plug that in and utilize that. For this guy right here, this is our air minder. So this is going to be our maintenance gauge on the air filter itself. You can simply push this here and it will reset. Then we want to go up and start the engine again and see what that goes to. Anytime you come back and you want to check that, always make sure that you reset it first, then start the engine up again. That's how you know if it's good or bad. Down here at the hitch, this is going to be your safe haul. So this is the quick connect, the air connection here for your tow brake system. That is an aftermarket part that you can buy from Spartan or Freightliner, depending on what chassis you have. That would simply connect, quick connect airline there to a component that you have mounted in your vehicle, and that gives you the air pressure you need to do your auxiliary braking system for your tow vehicle. So we're going to work our way up the driver's side of the coach here. This is going to be our dual def door. Like I said, starting on the 2025 product, everything has a dual def, so we have lowered this down underneath the belt rail so we can now have that on every floor plan. Coming forward a little bit here, this is going to be our Macerator access. This is just going to be the Macerator hose. So when this is fully extended, that is your Macerator hose. That is going to be 21 foot, and that can go out to your city hookups at your resort, campground, wherever you're at. One thing you do need to remember is this guy right here. We want to make sure we keep a hold of this cap, save this thing, don't lose this. If you got in the event where you ever needed to extend this discharge, this little top one here can come off. That's just a 5/8 garden hose. And you can technically dump your tanks through a 5/8 garden hose. So you can just connect a hose there. You can run that up. This Macerator system is capable of pumping 250 feet in a 1-inch incline, so pretty powerful. This is going to be stored inside this compartment. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, when I try to store this, it's expanded out, it's got some air trapped in it, it's got some water in it. We're going to give you a little trick for that. Before you go to store this, just pull your gray tank valve open a little bit so we just get enough that it releases the air out of this, and that will allow you to store this without any problem and without having air trapped in it, so that it's not hard to bunch up in there and get that in the way. So right now it looks like that's the case. It's got a lot of air locked in there, and so that's giving you a harder time to get that in there. We can resolve that by just opening the gray valve, and that allows that to let the air out of it and allow that hose to shrink back down. So inside our wet bay, a couple things we're going to talk about here. First up, hooking up to your city water. We've made this pretty simple for you. That is just with this hose right here. So you can simply take this hose out, connect it, and a lot of people are using a filter on this as well. Put a filter on the outside by the post, and then hook this up, and you can run it. Now, it is going through a few screens, so the thing we want to remember is that water is being filtered. If you use a filter out of the post, it also comes through here and goes in a screen that is going to be inside this inlet here, and then there's going to be another screen at your pump as well. So altogether, I believe there's 4 or 5 different screens in this plumbing system that you will want to check. There's one on the hose reel itself, there's one here in this contraption, there's one in the inlet itself, and then one obviously out at the fresh water pump. So we'll want to be checking that as well. So if we just kind of work our way right across the wet bay here, this is our city water inlet. This is for a tank flush. You now have the option to do black and gray tank flush. So hooking up a dedicated hose to this, we don't ever really want to put a Y in place here because that causes some issues. So we want a dedicated hose for the tank flush. And then depending on where you put this valve, we'll give you either your black tank or your gray tank. Again, when you're washing those out, make sure that you stay right here in this area. You don't leave. What we don't want to do is overflow either one of those tanks while we're trying to do the clean out. So make sure you pay attention. You stay right here with that as that's flushing that tank out. Again, try not to close those valves on the tanks. Filling that tank up too much, going to expand the tank, and worst case scenario, it's going to start running out on your roof, which we do not want to see. All right, this switch here is to retract the hose. So we pulled this hose out just a little bit. That is simply just going to run that hose right back in. It'll go to there and then it will release. So if you get too much pressure on it, it's going to release back out. This valve here is to change from city water to tank fill. So if I want to fill my tank up, I simply need to turn this, never remember which way. There it is. We turn it horizontal. That is going to be to fill the fresh water tank. Turn it vertical is a normal operation. So when you get done filling that fresh water tank, make sure you put that back in the vertical position so that it will fill up. Okay, now a couple things here on the switch panel. Obviously this is going to be our light. Then we have a deal here that says tilt and untilt. So what that is we're using the air leveling system on the coach where we can create a small tilt in the coach. Your engine is going to need to be on and running for this to operate. So if you're out here, you go to a dump station somewhere, you've got the engine running, you come out and you hit tilt, what it's going to do is it's going to take the coach and just tilt it a little bit. It raises the passenger side and drops the driver side, giving us a little more slope in the tanks to be able to drain those tanks out and get them completely drained out. So it's just a little assistance there to do that as well. The next switch over here is the macerator itself. So that is the macerator that's inside the compartment. We'll take that cover off here in just a second. But that is what turns this on. So you want to run that macerator anytime you're dumping those tanks. That's going to give you a nice suction out of the tank itself. And it also is going to give you some pressurized water on the tank, on the dump itself. So our black and gray valves here, gray being here and black being here, that's just to open the tanks themselves. And then we have a monitor panel here as well. So you're going to have black, gray, fresh, and your battery power. And then you have a switch for the pump. Over here all the way to the left is our whole house filter. That's this guy right here. And there's a tool for that as well to take that out and change the filter. This faucet down here is for a hose to be right here. So it has a quick connect hose on it. That will be used here in the wet bay, rinsing out your hoses, anything like that, washing anything out here, maybe washing your hands, things like that. There is another faucet that's up here. It does say front spray port. So there is a quick connect port in the front cap area. It's going to be to the right of the generator or on the driver's side of the coach. There's a small port there where we can take this exact hose that's going to be behind this wall here, and we can put it up front, we can hook it up there, and we can use that to clean the front of the coach off. So that's something a lot of people asked for when we got all the bugs and everything. Hey, I wish I had an easier way to wash the front of my coach. So we've made that available in this model. Behind this wall right here, when we open that up, you're going to find a few things. That is the hose that we were talking about right here. This is that quick connect hose, so it does have faucet on it, quick connect. This just goes in the quick connect here and up front. You are also going to find a couple filters back here. So one of them being this one right here, that is going to be your whole house cartridge that goes in here. And there's going to be one more. It always seems to slide back here somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. So this filter right here is your purified drinking water filter, and it does just go in place right here. So you can see that is an exact fit. This blue pipe right here is our bypass pipe. So when we ship the coach, we're going to winterize it. Anytime you would want to winterize it, you obviously want to take your filters out, or anytime you're sanitizing, take the filters out. You would want to put this bypass pipe in place. So hang on to this bypass pipe. Don't lose that. You'll need that in the future. But this is how that filter would simply go in there. Another thing that gets shipped in here is this little guy right here. This is a clear adapter. That's to go underneath the coach. So there is a 3-inch dump on the bottom of the coach, kind of what we consider our emergency dump from the Macerator. The reason we're putting this in here is because to put a regular hose on here gets a little tight because we're close to the ground, but this does go down underneath the coach. There's a fitting underneath there that this would fit to, and then you would attach your hose here. So that's going to be shipped in every coach as well. Some of the things that are inside this compartment here, we'll step back here for a second and let you get a closer look in here, but there are going to be valves in here, what we call our mana block, where there's valves that go from this compartment, and all of our plumbing lines inside are a home run. What we mean by that is there's no connections inside the floor or the walls other than at the fixture itself. So if something were to leak, you have a leak in the rear bath lav and it's only on the hot side, we can come down and turn that one particular valve off and still be able to use the rest of the water in the rest of the coach. So really convenient to be able to do that, and it keeps you from being stuck somewhere where you have a water leak and have no water. So just in case that would happen, we have those valves in here as well. There is another valve in here that we kind of pay a lot of attention to, and that's going to be over here on the fresh water pump. If you look on the pump itself, there is a valve that comes off the output side of the pump. That output side that valve is there just so we don't backfill the fresh water tank when we're using city water. So we've seen that in the past. We put city water on here. Inadvertently, while you're there, the fresh water tank starts to fill. Well, that is one of the ways that we found water was getting back into the fresh water tank. It was actually backflowing through the pump itself. So we have a valve there to turn that off. So you're going to notice that when it is turned off, you're not going to get any water to your system from the tank through the pump. One thing to keep in mind there. The other thing is, inadvertently, when we're talking about filling that fresh water tank, this coach is equipped with a shower miser. Anytime you use the shower miser, it will also be filling the fresh water tank because it recirculates that water back to the fresh water tank. So that's something that you'll want to keep in mind. Anytime you're using that shower miser, it is going to fill the fresh water tank even though you're hooked up to city water. All right, I think that's it in this compartment here. We can move up to the next one and talk about the Aqua Hot. In this compartment here, obviously you can see the short cord coming out from the bottom. This is going to be our short cord reel. So this is going to be 50 amp short cord. It's 35 foot long if I'm not mistaken. That's going to go in and plug into your post power. Now, the one thing to think about and to remember is that we do recommend you use an external surge guard, and you would always want to have the post breaker turned off before you plug in or you unplug your coach. So something to remember there. The way for this hose reel to operate, simply pull this out. It's free spooling on the way out, and then on the way in there is a small switch here. When we hit that switch, it's going to retract it in, and then it releases that pressure afterwards as well. The other things that are in this compartment are the transfer switch. In this particular model, the 2 red lights are important. You want to see those 2 red lights on the transfer switch. That's indicating that you have adequate power and that it is engaged. When those 2 red lights are on, there's no issues with it when those 2 red lights are solid. If they start flashing or one goes out, that means there's a service issue. We need to get that looked at and have it serviced. The other things that's in the compartment is the Aqua Hot, and there's going to be a couple things that we talk about with the Aqua Hot. So the reporter in the back there on that back wall, that's the control for the Aqua Hot. It's also controlled through our Firefly system inside the coach. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. There is your diesel filter here. That is going to be part of your yearly maintenance. You'll need to change out that diesel filter. And then this recovery tank, or the overflow tank, we want to be paying attention to that on a regular basis. So anytime you use your Aqua Hot, you'll want to be paying attention to that. Check it occasionally. Make sure that that fluid level is adequate. When we say adequate, we want to see that in between the cold and the hot. Understand that when you use the Aqua Hot, that fluid will expand, so it will come up. We want to check that while it is cold to make sure that it is in between those lines. If you check it when it's hot and it's all the way down, you add fluid to it, it gets cold, it's going to shrink down in there. If you fill it up to the top when it's cold, it's going to boil over. That's why we say do not fill that to the hot line. We want to stay in between the hot and cold. All right? If you check it when it's hot, it's all the way up to the top, and then it cools down and goes below the cold. We necessarily do not want to add fluid to that because it will start to boil over. So just something to remember there in that compartment. The other things that are in here are some cable hookups. You do have a hookup for part cable, and you will also have a hookup there for a yard dish. And what we call the yard dish is like the Traveler, the little satellite that just sits on a tripod that goes outside like a little tailgater. That is in the event that you're parked underneath some trees somewhere and your satellite on the roof is not working. We have the capability of just hooking up a yard dish here, tying that to it, and that goes directly into our entertainment center, where you could just swap one cable to your receiver and be able to operate from your yard dish rather than the satellite dish that's on the roof. So kind of convenient to have that there as well. And the next compartment up, our pass-through from the other side, pretty much that's all that's going to be here, except for there is a compartment right here. So what's important about this, it does have a vent on it. We have some electronics inside that compartment. We will want to make sure you guys have plenty of room there to store a lot of stuff, but we want to make sure we're not covering that and getting something stored all the way up to the top of that and covering that vent. That limits the ventilation and the airflow we have to those components, and they do need to breathe to be able to operate correctly. This is going to be the other side of the cargo tray. The cargo tray does come out on both sides, so we'll just display that here as well. Comes out again to about 80%. It's going to stop about right there. This is again the same cargo tray from the other side. 800-pound capacity, evenly distributed across the whole slide. So while we're over here, let's talk about these couple things that are in the tray itself. This shark right here is your vacuum for inside, and then this little bag here is the actual screen for the entry door. So we take that screen out, it is removable, gives you a little more visibility while you're driving so you don't have that mesh there when you look out that side window. So that screen is removable. This is how we're going to ship this coach, with a vacuum here and with the screen out of that entry door window. All right, so we're going to move up to the next compartment here and show you an access panel here that we have inside that compartment. So inside this compartment, small access panel here. This is going to house your awning controllers and also your Starlink equipment. So we're just going to take this off so you get a good look at it. What's actually behind this panel. This is going to be for your awning controllers, and then this obviously is the Starlink. So one of these is going to be your power supply here, and then this is the router. So you get wireless. We do have the ability to hardwire this to our intranet inside the coach, so you can have internet to all your equipment that's already processed in here. Right now it's connected wirelessly, but you do have the ability to add that so you can have a hardwired connection. Let me put this cover back on, and then we're going to talk about this as well. So a lot of these covers are just Velcroed on. Just hold it up here, push that in, make sure that it stays real good. Now, talking about this connection right here, this is a prep for a water softener. We've seen a lot of customers have the canisters where it just has an in and out. That's what this is for right here. So you would hook up your water softener out, your water softener in. Again, there's two screens here, remember that. And then there's two valves back here behind it. So these two valves behind here is what would give you that water flow in or out. These two here are your low point drains, so you're going to winterize the coach. This would also need to be winterized. you would want to winterize that down to this side. Now, in order for this to work correctly, if we go back to the wet bay and show you right behind the wall, there's another valve there that is basically a bypass. That turns the bypass off, so it forces it to go through the water softener. If you don't have that bypass turned off, you will have water coming out of both of these, and it's not necessarily going through your water softener, it's pressurizing both of them to the water softener, you're not getting a return. So we'll go back and show you that one as well, just so you have it and you see exactly what we're talking about. So we're back in the wet bay, we've taken the panel off, and just right above the left-hand side here, I'm just gonna take my hand straight up here, and there's going to be a valve. I believe I can get my hand on it right here. This valve here is in between two lines, and that is the bypass. So currently you see that this is in the open position, so it's allowing water to bypass that system. If we turn this, let's see which direction it goes, there we go. If we turn this right here, now that is forcing water to the input of the water softener, and it can only get back to the system by coming through the output. So in order to use that water softener prep up in the front compartment, we need to have this valve turned to the closed position. So another thing in this front compartment here where we have the Starlink and the water softener prep is this panel right here that's just in front of the storage compartment, this black plastic panel. This is removable, just has some screws around it. The reason that I'm telling you about that is because that is where our equalizer leveling pump assembly is installed. So you ever had any issue with your jacks, need to get to it, need to check the fluid level or anything, that is going to be behind this access panel. So we want to point that out on driver's side door number 1. All right, now we're up at the driver's side front fender. So this is in that front fender directly underneath the driver's seat. Open up this compartment, it does have its own light switch here. So we can turn the light on, turn the light off. A couple things that we're going to talk about inside this compartment. This is the equalizer leveling control panel. That is a smart level control panel, so it is Bluetooth capable. You can operate that with your cell phone. If you download the equalizer app, you can operate that as well. Now, this is kind of the emergency or the redundant controller here, because we really have this set up in our CCI, in our Safe View dash, where you can operate that right from the dash itself. So we'll show you how to operate that from inside as well. This is going to be some fuse panels out here, so we'll want to be checking that. And then this right here is to open the generator compartment and get access to the generator. But before we go up there, I want to show you that this bottom panel right here is removable. There's a little pull tab here. By pulling on this tab, it allows you to pull this out. And yes, it's going to look like a rat's nest in here. There's tons of wires and things in here, but there are also some breakers and some fuses that you need to be aware of. So there is going to be a panel in here that has some fuses. There's a cover on it you'd have to take off. That's going to be this black panel right here all the way back in the back. You would have to take that off to get to it. There's a label on the back side of it, and that is the chassis fuses inside that compartment. The other thing we're looking at is there's going to be some mini breakers in here as well. Those mini breakers actually go to your driver and passenger seat. So in the event your driver's seat stops working or your passenger seat stops working, you would want to be able to get in here and reset those. Those are manual reset breakers, so there's a little black button on the top of them. You just push that black button in and it will reset that breaker. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pull this lever here. It clicked. That should have opened our generator door. That gives us the ability to come up and pull this generator door out. So the important thing about the generator doors here is that it needs to come out even. We don't want to pull on the top. We don't want to pull just on the bottom. So I'm going to start this here with my foot. And then once it comes out, I'm going to reach and grab both, because we really don't want to pull on the top. It kind of pulls it down. We want to be having equal pressure across the entire thing. So the things we're going to find inside this generator compartment are this. This right here is that front sprayer we were talking about. That's the quick connect, where you can connect that 30-foot hose and be able to wash the front of the coach. This is your windshield washer, fluid and reservoir. And then there is a filter inside here. It's kind of hard to get to. We'll get a camera up there and show you what it is, but for the dash air conditioner, the dash AC, there is a filter in here that can be changed out. So we'll take a quick look and show you that as well. The generator itself, start and stop button is on the top of it. And there's also a breaker there. So one of the things we run into a lot is customers will take their coach in for service. The generator needs its annual service or its scheduled service for its 250 hours or 50 hours the first time. And what will happen is they'll turn that breaker off when they do the service, and they won't turn that breaker on when they're done. So you'll be driving down the road and not have any power into your coach. Most likely it's just going to be this breaker. So make sure we check that breaker anytime we have that generator serviced. So inside the wheel well here, if we look back towards the inside of the wheel well, there are going to be 3 lanyards back there. That is going to be to drain the moisture out of the tanks for the air system. So you have silver, green, and red, and that is the order that we want to pull those lanyards, is silver, green, and red, to make sure we get all that moisture out. No different than an air compressor you have at your house. You always want to drain the moisture out of that when you're done using it. So anytime we're driving, when we get done driving, we want to make sure we drain that moisture out of those tanks. It's just, they're right inside here, inside the wheel well. They've got little carabiners on them, and you need to go in and check those just about every time you drive. All right, now that we're done walking around the outside of the coach, we are going to go inside. You notice when we walked around, we left the slide outs in. So now we're going to go inside and run those slide outs out. The one thing we want to make sure that is very particular on an Entegra coach is that you always run those slide outs while the vehicle is at ride height. So we're going to go in, make sure the coach is at ride height, then we'll run those slide outs out, and then we will continue to do this walkthrough on the inside of the coach. So we're going to verify that we're at ride height. So I just turned the key on, we're going to check our gauges right here, and it has a little icon right here that says not at ride height. So we want to verify that we are at ride height. So in order to get this back up to ride height, I need to start this and allow this coach to air back up. So we're going to go ahead and start the coach. And on our dash controller here, I'm just going to go ahead and hit travel. What that will do is air us back up. When that light goes off, it is indicating that our coach is at ride height. So fairly quick process there. Normally it's going to be within a minute or two that it comes up to ride height. It airs up those bags completely after you hit travel and we're at normal ride. So now that we're at ride height, we can go ahead and run all those slide outs out. Now that we're coming inside, we're going to start here by the entry door and the passenger side console. There are several switches on there. You are going to have your main power switch, your step power, and your step light switch. So just to give you what those do, the step power is what gives us the operation of the step going in and out outside. So if we turn that step power off, you can open the door, the step stays out. You close the door, the step stays out. That's just so you don't have to wait for that step to run in and out every time you open and close the door. Step light is going to be the light here in the wheel well and the under step light. Then you have your Firefly switch panel is going to have outside lights on it, cargo slide out, porch light, some security lights on there, has your awning lights, and then it's going to have the main master light, so to turn on the entire coach, all the lights in the coach. The switch right above it is your step cover, and the step cover is this guy right here. It operates a step cover here, so when you are driving, you can run that step cover out and have a place to set your feet so they're not dangling over the top of the stairwell here. Some other things that are here is the fire extinguisher is mounted to this passenger side console too, so a little safety factor there. Make sure you're familiar with that fire extinguisher as well. We'll come back to the passenger touchscreen on top because that is only going to be powered by the ignition, and that is part of our dash system. So we'll come back and talk about that when we do the explanation of the entire dash area. So just hold tight, we'll come back to that one. We're going to move right here up to the front passenger overhead. There's going to be a couple things in here to be aware of. Our Winegard Razor antenna controller, this is your off-air antenna. So for local TV stations, that's going to be this controller here. Simply turn it on, it will do its own search. Searches for however many channels. You can fine tune that. There is a left and right, so it'll fine tune and find those available channels in your area. For this panel here, this is for our slide outs, so you can run the slide outs individually. They can only run one at a time. You have extend and retract. The thing about the slide out is, we've already said this, you want to make sure the coach is at ride height. That's very, very important that the coach is at ride height before we run the rooms in or out. Secondly is when we stop the rooms. How do we know the room is all the way in or all the way out? Well, when it gets close to that, where it's going to be all the way out, it'll start to bog down. You'll be able to hear that motor bog down a little bit. And just when that thing starts to bog down, we want to let go of that switch. It's going to continue to run for right around 2.5 seconds. So we don't want to overextend that. That puts a little too much pressure on the outside wall and on your fascia board. So we want to make sure that we're able to stop those in time. We're not overextending or over retracting them and putting too much pressure. This next switch panel here is the AC override. So in the event something happens to your onboard automation system, to the Firefly system, this is your AC overrides. Now there is specific instructions for these. We've got it covered in our user guides and in our manuals. You only want to use these in an emergency, and you only want to operate each one for 20 to 30 minutes at a time. The reason being is this overrides everything in the air conditioner. We're talking pressure switches, safeties, all of that. It's just constant high fan and compressor. So it would be really easy to burn up your compressor should that thing freeze over or something because we're running it too long. Be mindful of that. We only want to run them 20 to 30 minutes at a time. So run the front one, then turn it off and run the second one, then turn that off and run the third one, and so forth. So you're going back and forth and running each one. We don't want to have all three of those on at one time, and we don't want to leave them on all the time because that will cause damage to the air conditioner. All right, so we're going to move up here and talk about this. This is your Winegard satellite controller in the front overhead here. That is for the Traveler satellite. So the options here you have of the DirecTV Traveler, or you have the Dish Traveler. You can get either one. We also do a Shaw for the Canadian satellite as well. So those are some of the options you can get with that setup. But this is the controller. This is where it's going to be inside this front overhead. This front box right here, this little 110 box, is for our front overhead TV. So that is a regulation that we have to abide by. What that is doing is that is turning off that TV or making it inoperable when the ignition is on. So just remember that that is in place as well. All right, so we're going to take the opportunity. We're just going to go through the entire coach here. On the inside, we're going to start on one side, just walk right down it, talk about what's where and how to operate some things. So we'll just go walk right through, and we will come back and do some detailed things about how to hook up and how to connect. But we want to give you an idea, just first off, an overview of the coach. And when you're expecting delivery, there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to notice and a lot of things that's going to be told to you. You're not going to remember all that. We'll come back and do some in-depth videos as well to show you those things. So starting here, we have a Firefly switch panel that has your porch light, your entry light, and your panel lights, so we can turn these lights off on the panel. What that does is turn those lights off, so if you were sleeping, that light is not blinding you while you're trying to sleep. There's also a light master that will turn off all the lights and turn all the lights back on. As we're going through the coach, we're just going to point out some things and show you how a couple things operate. So this is the sofa. It is going to be a hide-a-bed. So in order to operate that hide-a-bed, you're going to need to take these cushions off. Again, we're going to go into detail in each one of those components and have more videos on those in each component. Inside these overhead cabinets are going to be a lot of hookups, so we're going to talk about those. We'll open both of those so we can get a good look at them. Inside here is going to be our AV plate. So this is where we would put our satellite receiver, just set it in right here, and you would be able to hook up that satellite receiver to this plate. So what that's doing is pulling the antenna signal into your satellite receiver. Then we have an output where we can go out to the TVs. We're actually going to go right across the cabinet here and go to the matrix. So that would go plug right into your matrix system, and then you would be able to show that satellite TV on any of your TVs in the entire coach by using this matrix system. Again, we're going to go through detail of how each one of those components work, but right now we're just trying to get you an overview of how the coach is set up and where things are at. Right behind the sofa here is the TV lift. To operate the TV lift is going to be over here, right next to your sofa or theater seat on this side. So by pushing this button, it's just a toggle switch. We can run that TV up and we can run that TV back down. Moving further back into the kitchen, some of the features here inside the kitchen, we obviously have the dishwasher. This is a kitchen island. So this kitchen island pulls out, simple, very easy to operate. This does have a safety lock on it as well. So it has, we're installing an electromagnet in the back. So what that does is when you release the park brake, that locks this in place so it can't slide out while you're driving. Inside your overhead cabinets, when you get your coach and you start to take delivery, there's going to be some components in here. We want you to make sure you have all these components and you're looking for. All of the remotes that go through the entire coach, that's going to be either TV remotes, your sound bars, all of that stuff is going to be there. There's a matrix remote. There's also a camera remote. And then we have the pump there. That is for the air mattress that goes to your sleeper sofa, to the hide-a-bed sofa here. So things to remember on that as well. Coming over to the microwave, this is going to be a convection microwave. The biggest thing that we can take away from the microwave is that there is a vent on the outside of the coach, outside, that you need to open before you operate this microwave or use a convection oven. That's very important that that vent is open. Just above the microwave here in this storage compartment is going to be your cover for your stove. So we know some of us get a little careless pulling stuff out of the microwave or setting stuff on countertops. This is just a great way to protect that stove, that glass top, just by using this cover, and it does match the rest of your wood. Now, don't use this as a cutting board. I'll say that to all the guys out there. We would probably do something like that, so try not to use that as a cutting board. When we're talking about the stove top, That is a 110 stovetop, so it does have a limitation on it, simply meaning this: I can't run both of these burners at 10. I can do a combination of 10, so I can do 6 on the big burner and 4 on the small burner. I can do 7 here or 3 here. I cannot do 8 and 8. It cannot go over the value of 10. So whatever we're doing, it can be 5 and 5. So that kind of puts you into a little bit of a bind. A little bit when it comes to making some things. We can't have 2 burners going full blast at the same time, only because it's a 110 element. So that's one of the limitations there. On the dishwasher, this is on an inverted circuit, and it does have a lock on it. So we'll go into detail how to operate that dishwasher and how to lock that. We want to verify that that is locked before you travel. So that's one thing that we always want to check on, is to make sure that that is locked before we start to travel. All right, we're going to go ahead and move back here towards the back and talk about a couple things as well. We will come back to all of the screens here. So this is going to be our Firefly screen, and this is going to be our Victron controller. We'll come back and talk about those here in a little bit, but just so you know, they're right in the center of the coach. So as we're moving back in the coach here, a couple things on the wall. We get questions about what are these little components here. Those are the thermistors. So that is for the room temperature sensors. You do have 2 here. One is for the air conditioner, and one is for your floor heat. That's this one down here at the bottom. And also our CO detector down there as well that we have to have. Now, mid-bathroom door, we get a lot of questions. Why is this piece of tape here? And this tape may not be there when you get the coach. The dealer may take this off and have this separate. But what is taped behind there is the key. So that is the key for this door right here. So important that you have that as well. This is going to be the half bathroom, split mirrors in here, and your toilet. So the biggest thing to take out of here is there's some fuses and things in here as well that we'll want to look at, and then the toilet operation. So we're going to do some detailed videos of how that operates and what that is, and we'll also come back in and look at some of those electronics that's inside that cabinet when we come back through. Walking through back into the bedroom, we're going to show you a couple things. There is a switch panel that's going to be on the bed overhead here, as well as our fan control, so the 2 things that are there. And then we started putting outlets inside the overhead cabinet. So there's an outlet, 110 outlet, that is inverted. If anybody has a CPAP or anything, that is a good place to put that up there as well. The bed does have storage underneath it, so there's a couple things we want to make sure we're very cautious about. When we get underneath the bed itself, there are 2 storage compartments off to the sides. What we don't want to do is ever put anything on the inside or the center of this storage. There's a lot of space back there. And people look at that and go, wow, there's a lot of missed space that it could. The reason you can't do that is because this room is coming in and out. There's wires in there that have to be moving with the room. So do not store anything in the center section here in between the bed. That is very, very important, because we could pull some wires out of place, and we wouldn't want that. So as we're coming back through the bedroom, coming back into the rear bath, obviously everything's separated by pocket doors. On the pocket doors themselves, you may hear this driving down the road. This pocket door needs to be in the closed position, so we want it back inside the wall. And the reason being, when you release the park brake, we do have a lock on the bottom of the door that comes up and locks that door in place while you're driving. So if you come back here while you are driving, you'd have to crawl over the bed, so maybe not a whole lot of people would do that. But if you did come back here, understand that you cannot close this door. For one, this slide out's going to come all the way into here. And secondly, there's a lock underneath here, so it's going to be very, very difficult to get that door in the open position or where we're closing off this back section. The Macerator vent fan with the remote on the wall, that is how we're controlling the Macerator vent fan. So you have a remote there, again the toilet switch on the back, and then we have our shower and our shower miser. So talk about the shower miser for a second. The shower miser, the intent of that shower miser is to be able to recirculate that water to get good hot water. So you get in the shower, it's not as hot as you want it to be. You turn on the shower miser, that recirculates the water back to the fresh water tank, which allows it to come back through the water heater again. That brings that water heater up to temperature. You're going to get good hot water coming through the shower. That's by using that shower miser. We'll step back here into the rear closet, show you the washer and dryer. A couple things that we want to look at here in the washer and dryer cabinet is on the washer and dryer itself, we want to make sure that we have everything cleaned out and that everything stays maintained well. So on the dryer itself, there is a lint trap right here. This simply pulls out. You'll want to clean that every time that you are drying clothes. The washer itself has a trap as well in the drain. It has a small screen in there, but the access to that is actually going to be through the bottom panel here. So this bottom panel does come off, and this is a maintenance item. In order to get that off, this white strip has to come out of there, and then this cover comes off, and it's just like your refrigerator filters are, where you just do a quarter turn and it slides out. That's going to be in the bottom of that washer. A couple things to think about as well. If we're not using the washer and dryer, it's not a bad idea, if you're not going to be using it for a while, to go ahead and turn the breakers off in the front overhead. We'll show you where all those breakers are here in a little bit as well. You do have a full closet here with a lit closet rod, and then you're going to have some extra storage here. We did add the Aqua Hot heat exchanger underneath that dresser area, so we do have Aqua Hot heating down here as well. Something just to remember, that's kind of a convenience and keeps this area warm. As we come back through, you'll notice that there's a different style of switches. This one here happens to be a toggle switch for the ceiling lights, so if I hit this, it's going to turn off these lights here in that closet. It's just a simple one touch. So we just touch it, comes on, touch it again, it goes off. So a couple different styles of switches throughout the coach. Vanity slide out here as well. You're going to have heat that's in the bathroom. It's actually coming from this side, but anywhere we're running an Aqua Hot line or we're running a water line, we have an Aqua Hot line with it. So those two are going to run together. That's one of the cool things about the coach. When we're talking about delivering this, really this is going to be your personal preference of how you want to set this up. You need to know how to operate it. So again, we're going to come back with some detailed videos of what each controller are in the coach. Let's move forward to this front bedroom area here. It's going to be dressers on both sides, and then we have our TV. So the TV is on a small lift here that's going to open up, and we have some storage back behind here. That is going to be your safe as well. So you have the location of that. And then your emergency exit window. So this is the rear emergency exit window. That is going to be through the vanity. We do have a video out there showing you how to use that as well, how to get in and out of that. In this compartment right here, there's going to be your DVD player and a selector switch for this rear TV. So we can select whether we want what's coming from the matrix to go to this TV or what's coming from this DVD player. So that's going to be inside the side cabinet. Moving back up into the living room, on your pantry, there's a couple things to remember about the pantry. So on these drawers themselves, these are all going to be drawers, and you notice how it kind of catches right there. That's one thing that you want to keep in mind. When you open this up, if we just went to close it, and we closed it to here, that's not fully closed. This is going to rub on that door. We want to make sure we really give that a good push and that snaps in place. So when you put your jars, bottles, anything like that in here, it doesn't have enough weight to push out and scratch that door while you're driving. On the refrigerator and freezer, there are locks here. You see that we ship this with a zip tie on it so that can't be opened or closed. That's just ensuring that no one's using that while it's coming to you. But there is a lock here as well. So on these locks, open and close, anytime you are traveling, you want to have that thing locked up. What we don't want is that thing to open up while you're driving down the road and spill half of your refrigerator out onto the floor. Kind of makes a mess. So try not to do that. On your furniture here in the slide out, you are going to have storage underneath the dinette booth. So this is going to be kind of an option here where you have either a dinette booth or a freestanding table and chair. Obviously with the booth, you see that we have storage there. That storage is for smaller stuff. When we're talking about a slide out itself, that's not the great place to put your gold bars. We're going to overweight the slide out. So kind of keep that to a minimal and manage what you're storing in those compartments. The table does come out, so it is on an extension. There is a small latch here. Find that small latch underneath that allows you to move that table in and out. Now, it's not a whole lot, but it does give you a little bit more elbow room here as well. So one thing we got to remember is that gets locked back up before we travel, because we don't want that table sliding out while you're going down the road. Your theater seat here, recliners, this is going to be how we're going to use our theater seat. So there's going to be two operations here. This is going to be the headrest. So it has a motorized headrest to go up and down. And then you have your actual recline is going to be the black buttons here. All right, so that kind of gives you a walkthrough. Of some of the things that are here, we still need to touch base on this front driver's side compartment. That's going to be this front driver overhead. So in the front driver overhead are the breaker boxes. We mentioned this back there about turning off the washer and dryer. So you have two panels up here. The panel that is on the left side, so as you're looking at it, the panel on the left is our main circuit breaker. So what this is these will only operate if you're plugged into shore power or you have the generator running. That's the only time these are going to have power. If we switch over to the right side panel, that is going to be our inverted circuits. So the inverted circuits are what will operate anytime you have adequate battery power, regardless if you're plugged into shore power or have the generator running. Those components in that breaker box will operate off of your batteries. All right, so one thing here is that I just let that go down. Now, you don't want to do that, because what's going to happen driving down the road is you get this nice little rattle. When we're done looking at these, we want to make sure we push that in and lock those in place so that we don't have that rattle driving down the road. Another thing that's inside this compartment is on the back of the door itself. There is a label right here. We want you to know that this label is here. That is your paint codes for the outside of the coach. So if you ever needed to get some repairs done on paint and people are looking for, the repair facilities looking for a paint code or needing to understand what paint it is, we have those paint codes printed right here on the inside of that driver's side overhead. All right, so let's take a little break here. Then we're going to come back and talk about the dash components, and then we'll go back into the Firefly mid-screen section as well. All right, so as we're sitting in the driver's seat, we're going to talk about all the things that are incorporated in the dash here. We'll just kind of go right around the dash and talk about the switches. So on the driver's side console, we've got some switches: tag dump, you've got your generator start, you've got a battery boost, and your dome lights. So real simple. The dome lights is just going to control these two lights that are right above us, so we can turn those on and off. The battery boost switch is your auxiliary start switch, or anytime you have dead house batteries or dead chassis batteries, you can hit the switch and use the other battery to start. The generator start, simple, that's to start or stop the generator. And then the tag dump. So the tag dump switch is for the tag axle in the back if you're taking a tight turn. And when we say tight turn, we're really talking about when you do a U-turn or you're doing a complete circle here. Just a normal turn, you don't have to worry about this at all. But if you're taking a very tight turn, you would press that. It does say hold on it, but if you press and release it, it's going to dump that tag axle just enough for you to get around the corner or to make that tight turn, then it will air back up. So those are the things that are on this driver's side console. Up front here on the driver's side console is your Allison shift pad. We'll go over that in detail as well, because there's a couple modes that we can go to. You've got your reverse, neutral, and drive. So those are your basic things that you'll need to know. Is just the R is reverse, N is neutral, and D is drive. The mode button puts you in economy mode. The only time you'd really want to be using that economy mode is if you're on a straight, flat, plain surface. Anytime you're going up and down hills, mountains, you do not want to use economy. The coach just isn't going to perform very well. All right. Next over here on the side is going to be the parking brake. That's the yellow knob here. And then right next to that are headlight switches. So we do have automatic headlights as well, your daytime running lights or your low beams. But you turn on your headlight switch and this will control your headlights and your fog lights. Also your illumination here. You can turn that up or down. There's a dimmer switch here. On the side of the console is a USB port. That is for us to be able to do software updates. That's what we use to get software into the CCI and into the GIC there. And there's another component behind the dash here called the CIM. That is where we would get that software through that USB. Up underneath here as well is a small access panel. There, I just pulled that off. That's the small access panel. So that small panel right there opens up the OBD, the onboard diagnostic tool for the chassis, as well as the air override switch. So if you went to start the coach and there was no air in the coach, you have to have that brake signal to get that coach to start. That is the override air switch that's going to be down in this compartment. Further up, let's go up here to the steering wheel itself. In order to operate the steering wheel tilt or telescope, there is a small foot pedal over here on the left hand side. So if we just push on that, that allows us to tilt, and we should be able to telescope. Right there it is. So that's all the way out and up and down. All right, number of things here on the steering column. Obviously we have our turn signal switch and our high beam over here on the left hand side. Underneath that is a little silver tab, and that is going to be for your hazards. So in order to get the hazards to work, you pull out on the silver tab. They will start flashing. To turn those off, just operate your turn signal in the normal operation. The rest of the stuff on here is going to operate while the ignition is on. So we're going to go ahead and just turn the key on. We'll get the light bar to come up, the GIC up here in front. We'll get that to come on, and we'll show you some of the things that this steering pod will do. You've got some switches here on the sides. You're going to have volume and mute and on and off. So this is volume up and down. This is mute on and off. On this side over here, you are going to have your telephone, which is going to be the top button here. It's your telephone to answer or end a call. And then the bottom button is going to be for your engine brake. So the engine brake is just on a little toggle switch here on the side of your steering wheel. So when we turn that on, you'll see that the icon comes up here on the dash itself, and then you can go through the different levels. So we can go through high, low, and medium. We'll go back up to high here, and then we can turn that completely off. So when that goes away, it's off. On the rest of this pod here, you have your headlight flash. That's going to be this, so a courtesy flash of your headlights. And then the rest of this is your cruise control or high idle. So we hit the on button. It allows us to use the cruise control. If the engine's running, we can press and hold the reset or the set button. That goes into a high idle. Just by pressing that one time, it goes into, I want to say that it's right at 1,000 RPM, then you can continue to hold that as well. To cancel your cruise, simply press this button here, and it will cancel that cruise. So let's move over to this pod here. Again, we said your volume here and your mute is on top here, and to turn the radio on and off or change the source is pushing down. The rest of this is going to be your courtesy flash here. That is going to be for your marker lights, courtesy flash on and off. And then your wiper control. So this center pod right here is wiper control. Now you do have automatic rain sensing wipers. So anytime you turn the ignition on, that is activated. The auto rain sensor is activated. If you want to turn that off, we can press this off button here. That turns off the automation, and now you are controlling that. So this is also going to be your delay, whether or not you want that to have a time delay. So the old wipers, you would press it once, and then you'd count your time, and then you'd press it again, and that would set your time. On this particular one, this is your auto function, or we're doing a time delay on it. The center pod here is to wash the windshield, and then the left pod here is to do high or low. Again, washing it, we want to make sure there's fluid on there. We don't ever want to run the wipers dry because they are such a large wiper. It puts a little too much tension on that wiper motor, and it can also damage the blade. So make sure there's always moisture on the windshield before operating that. This bottom button here is for your air horn. So there's going to be an icon that shows up on your gauges right here when you activate that air horn. That's just the difference between having your regular city horn or an air horn itself. So that's what that control is for. Now this bottom pod right here will do several different things. There is one button here on the left. It's called Screen View. What that is going to do is take what I have displayed here and give me the ability to display it right here in the center. So by hitting the Screen View, it will take us to the navigation, and it will take us to the camera system. So there is a kind of a caveat to this. It has to process that and get that signal over, but driving down the road, you would be able to have both of those in play. One of the things that we do know we have out there is there's a couple coaches that your park brake has to be released, and I was thinking that was going to be one of these, but it is taking some time to get that out there. But it has your exact navigation and your cameras. Those should match from your GIC to your CCI here on the side. So that is what the Screen View button is for. We'll go back to our normal Screen View here, where the gauges are in the center. The rest of these are for the radio control. The source here is going to be able to control the radio, and then your arrows over, that's basically your tune arrows. The center pod is specifically for this bottom corner of the gauges. So that is going to be controlling these gauges. So if I go ahead and put the down arrow here, you're going to see we can cycle through several menu options, different things, all of our messages, our faults. We can go into settings there, and it's going to be your normal odometer. So anytime you get off on a page and say, I need to go back to my odometer, if you just hit the home screen, that'll take you right back to your trip odometer, and then you have that information there as well. So that kind of takes care of the steering wheel. Let's shift over here and talk about the center console and all the available options that are on the center console. So looking at this, obviously we have the camera screen at the top. You do have the ability to change your view. So right now we are on the two pictures. We can go to each side. We can just go through and show you some of those different things there. We also have a settings page where we can go in and look at some of those. It is going to ask us for a password. We're not going to go into that right now. We'll do that into our detailed videos that we're going to do. So go back to our normal view there. So that's basically your camera system. The overhead view, do one more right here, because what that will give us is this right here. We should be able to take this entire screen and make it our overhead. So this is kind of nice driving down the road to be able to see that entire screen all the way around. Maybe you're parking your coach, you want to be able to see that full view with nothing else. It gives you a great glimpse of what's around the coach. Just by pushing the X here, we can get out of that, go back to our normal screen. So the rest of this down here at the bottom, we'll just go through our audio sources. You're going to select audio and then go to source, and that gives you your available sources that you have to choose from: Bluetooth radio, USB port, or our Sirius radio if you've activated that service. This climate control is only going to be operational when the ignition key is on. This gives us the ability to run the dash air conditioner. So you've got your modes down here in the center, which basically is telling you where your air is coming from, your blower motor control here, your temperature control, and then this is to recirculate the air, basically putting it in max AC. Sync button will allow the driver to control the passenger. And then you have your max AC and your AC here. This does have a passenger control on it. The passenger can control both. Unless you go to defrost, then it's only going to be controlled here, and whatever you set on that defrost, it automatically goes to full fan and heat when you select defrost. So that's one thing to remember on there as well. Moving on to the shade icon, this gives you the ability to do your day and night shade. Now the powered shades on the Aspire are only going to be the front two shades. There is kind of a safety built into this, that you cannot run these shades down while the ignition is on. You can run your day shades down while the ignition is on, but you have to press and hold that button. It's not just a one-touch operation. The night shades are completely cut off. They will run up in the event they're down right now, and we would hit the up button. It will run up with the ignition on, but that's the only way they're going to run. On your mirrors and your controls, this gives you the ability to control your mirrors. So to adjust our mirrors up and down, you need to select what mirror you want to operate. So the blue line indicates what mirror we're operating, and then your arrows give you those. This is the defrost, so we can hit the defrost. That's the heat in the mirrors. Then we can switch to our pedals. That's just making our pedals go in and out. And this is a secondary camera control where we can choose what camera we want to. That was originally what we put in before we had the touch button, so just another added ability to operate those cameras. We'll come back here to the GPS in a second. That one's going to take a little bit, so we'll shift over here to leveling. The leveling system is going to be air and hydraulic. So travel, manual, and auto all go to the valid air leveling system. The jacks go to the equalizer hydraulic. So that's that panel that we've seen outside in the front fender. We're basically going to operate that from inside here. So we can still do our auto level process. We can manually do the front, rear, left, or right. Remember, those run in pairs. So you can only run two at a time. If you hit the left, both left sides are coming down. If you hit the front, both of the front jacks are coming down. So they're going to run in pairs. The all retract is going to be how we leave. When we go to leave, we're going to start the engine, get it to high idle. So we're building air pressure, then we'll hit all retract. That pulls all the jacks up at one time. All right. When we're going to the air leveling system, you've got travel mode. Let's get back to the travel mode here. Maybe. There we go. So go back to travel. It's because my ignition is not on, or my engine's not running, so it's not going to have the air pressure there to build that up. But we can go through travel. You have the option of doing a high ride. Normal ride is where we're going to operate all the time. So anytime this coach goes over 5 miles an hour, it's going to automatically go to normal ride height. You can't have the high ride or the low ride when we get that speed. Manual gives us the ability to operate each airbag. Again, it's not going to allow you to get this into a twist. It would actually come up on the screen here and say twist, and it will stop you from doing that. So it continues to make the parameters so that we stay within a good allowance where we're not twisting this chassis up too much. All right, and then the auto level, simply going to be this. When we put it in auto, it's going to auto level the coach based on the airbags rather than the hydraulic leveling. So it started that process right now, and you can hear it probably dumping some air. We're moving around a little bit. If we go ahead and hit travel, it's going to stop that process and try to achieve normal ride height. Now, because I'm not running, the engine's not running, I'm not going to have enough air pressure to get to normal ride height. It's going to attempt it, but we're not going to have enough. All right, going down to the phone controls, this is going to be where we'll connect the phone. And again, we're going to go back through these in detail to show you exactly how to connect that phone and what all that operates in the process. The next icon here is going to be your lights. So you have the ability to operate your dome light from the touchscreen. Our docking lights are going to be all the way around the coach. And then we have a couple master switches here. So master interior lights and exterior. These are not going to give you status. So if we hit one of those, you see that it's not highlighted blue right now where this one is. That's indicating that it's on. Our badge light's indicating that it's on. But these don't have a status. That is because of our communication between the two systems. We will not display a status there. So just because it doesn't have a blue icon doesn't mean it's on or off. You just select it from there, and that's what's going to happen. Badge light and accent light. The badge light is the Entegra badge on the front and the rear. The accent lights are going to be the C lights, so around your headlights, that C that we have. And then you have the ability to dim those as well. So that's with this control here. And we've added this as well, the auto off time. So we can set it to go off. We've heard this phone call a lot, which is one of the reasons why we put this on there. We've got customers say, you know, I really like those lights. I want to turn them on, but I don't want them on all night. Some of my neighbors are complaining that it's too bright. So you have the ability to dim those down. Now we can set them on a timer. So, hey, we want them on for the evening, but we want them to go off, and we don't want to have to worry about them going off. You can set that to automatically go off at a specific time. On the utilities page, this is our operation of your generator, your auto gen start, and also your house temperature here. So we can set what we want this front zone to be, and that translates to the Firefly system controlling the air conditioners. Step slide cover, extend and retract, that's the same thing as we have on the passenger side console. It's just being able to be controlled from here. And then our entry door and cargo door locks here, where we can lock and unlock the doors from there. On the settings page, when we look at the settings page, there is a reset. This is important here. The reset button right here allows you to reset this entire screen. So if something happens, it freezes up, something's not looking right, the best thing to do is go in and reset that. And then this option right here, that is the output to the TV. So you can output your cameras or your navigation to any TV in the coach through the matrix system. So we would want to turn this on by selecting this here. That gives you your navigation, or you can do your cameras. In a sense, you're being able to use your cameras. You could go to the bedroom TV and put this camera feed on your bedroom TV. So that acts as kind of a security camera system. You could have that on all the time if you wanted. The QR code right here is going to give you some product information about this particular system, the valid CCI system. That's also where you will find any software updates that are available for this operating system. So one way we're going to check that is if we go into settings here, it's going to have some system information, and then it will give you your revision. So this is the revision that we're talking about right here. You will be able to go out onto that QR code, scan that, go to their website, and it will give you, if there is an update available, it will give you that revision number. You have the ability to download that and install that. We're going to show you guys how to do that in a later video as well. So that kind of takes care of that screen here. Obviously we have these buttons down here. This is going to be our volume control. Anytime we select this, gives you your pop out for a volume. This is the mute button, or we can turn the volume on so we mute it. There's no volume. Same thing with these. This is going to be your status of where you're at on your controls. So if we go back to climate, that's going to be these here. If we turn the fan on, that's going to be your status of your fans. So this controller down here is kind of the backup or the bypass. That's kind of a redundant control. It will do the exact same thing. So if I turn this dial here, you'll see the fan speed go up. Same thing with the temperature. We can adjust the temperature from here. Easier to reach over and grab those rather than going through the whole screen possibly. So one thing to remember there. So that pretty much covers all of this portion. There is a passenger side touchscreen over there as well. We'll go through that in detail on a later video when we go through all of these components in detail, showing you how to connect to them, how they operate, and what each function is. So we're going to change positions here. We'll go back to the Firefly screen and talk about the Firefly screen, and then we'll also go through the Victron controls as well. All right, the passenger touchscreen, which gives you the ability to operate everything on the center console. Everything on that screen is duplicated, but that will only come on when the ignition is on. So back at the Firefly screen, this is going to be our automation screen for the entire coach. So we're just going to go through a couple icons here. Obviously the tabs down the side here are giving you another page. So the home page is what you'd see on a normal basis. That is going to be your master light on and off. This is your room temperatures here, telling you what the temperature is in the room. And then you have your tank gauges here. You can turn the water pump on and off from here. We can lock and unlock the entry door. These down here are going to be some statuses for you, and then generator start and stop, and we have our Aqua Hot controls right here on the main page as well. This kitchen vent fan is the only way to operate that kitchen vent fan. It's going to be here on the home page, and then we have our battery voltage, both house and chassis, and the AGS auto gen start you can enable right here, press and hold that as well. So we'll just kind of do an overview of what's going on each screen. This is your electrical status page. So it's basically telling you what power you have incoming and how we're charging. It is just going to be giving us a status. All of our charging main stuff is going to be coming from the Victron screen, which we'll get to here in a second. But on your display here, this is one of the key things that we can take away from here. When we're plugged into shore power, this is going to show that we have incoming power. The white line here with the black triangles is telling us where that power is going. So we can confirm by looking at this page, we are plugged in, it is going through the breaker box, it is getting to the inverter charger, and we are actively charging our battery. So that's part of the status there. This center section right here is our EMS. That's the energy management system. So that will tell you if one of those components are not working. Let's say we're plugged into 30 amp power, you had all 3 ACs on and the electric element in the Aqua Hot, it's going to turn those off. So this right here would say shed off to the side, because what we've done is essentially turned that off so that we have power to run the air conditioners. Well, that's what that is going to do. The rest of this is going to be a status. You have a couple of other options here as well, electrical settings and solar controller. Again, when we do our in-depth video of each one of these components, we'll go back through that to show you those. On the lighting page, this is going to be all of your lighting controls. So you have interior and exterior. Any one of those icons with an arrow on it is a dimmable circuit. So you can see that all these arrows here are dimmable light circuits. This bed reading light does not have that, so it's not a dimmable circuit. You have master light, interior master on and off, and panel lights on and off, and exterior on and off. If we were to go through and change a couple of these, turn a couple off, and then hit the off button, when we hit the on button again, it memorizes that setting and will only turn those on that we had on. Now, if we press and hold the on button for 3 seconds, it turns all of the lights on in the coach. That's kind of the point of having the master light switch. Going down to our temperature controls, this is going to be for your air conditioners and your Aqua Hot. So we can control our air conditioners here. Each zone is going to have its own control. You'll see we can turn on cool, heat pump, or the Aqua Hot, and then we turn on auto. So in auto, you set a temperature, and there's an algorithm there that we have in place that it gets to a certain temperature, turns off, or it gets too cold, it turns the heat pump on, it gets too hot, it turns the AC on. So there's an algorithm we have working in the background that operates that. Down across the bottom, you have your bay. That's going to be for the basement, the cargo area, which is only heated. There's no air down there. And then this is your floor. So that is the in-floor heat that we have. Basically what that is using radiant heat. We're circulating that hydronic fluid through the entire floor to create a warm floor for you. Going to the exterior page, so this is going to be the exterior, do slide outs, awnings, and shades if we had them, the outside shades if we had those powered. So it's always going to give you this warning page. Again, always make sure you have plenty of space out there. We want to make sure your clearance is adequate before you run your slide outs out or you run your awnings. Just going to be a reminder here to do that. When we get to this page, you have the option of doing your slide outs or your awnings. So when we look at slide outs, you have the extend and retract. You can only run one at a time. And again, same thing we talked about up front. Make sure you're holding that button. You don't want to overextend or over retract. So as soon as you hear that motor bog down, we want to release that button and allow that slide motor to stop. On the awnings, these are all set up with limit switches, except for the door awning. I believe you have to press and hold that one to get it to stay out. So the rest of these we can do extend and retract. Same thing on the awnings. We can also do this from an app, so we'll show you that here in a little bit as well. On your settings page, this is kind of going to be your troubleshooting page here. You have network diagnostics, where we can go in and see all of these circuits that are on, and it's going to show us whether or not it is on or off. So we'll go in that in a second. Aqua Hot Diagnostics is the same thing. That's the controller that's down in the basement is duplicated upstairs. Then you have your settings. So we have a floor plan, switch panels. All of your switch panels in here are wireless, so it will give you those exact connections. And then the mobile app, we'll talk about that as well. So let's go into the network diagnostics. This is where we're talking about it. We'll tell you those circuits that are on. It will also give us some diagnostic on that particular circuit. So there's going to be some pluses and some negatives that show up in here. If everything was turned on, This is giving you what has power output and what has power input, and it's going to tell you whether it's a positive signal or a negative signal. So we can just go through those, see everything that's on. The defaults and devices and faults page is going to give us everything that's connected to the network and its status. So it gives us their firmware and the configuration that it has on it. So that's kind of a troubleshooting tool to understand what's working and what's not. And then anytime we have any faults in the system, it will display it right here on this faults page. Solar controller, diagnostics, that's going to go into the solar settings. We'll go back to the electrical page when we do the in-depth and show you what that is as well. So back to this main page of our settings. When we go into the mobile app, it's going to come up with that code, a QR. You want to download that application, and then you will be able to operate this coach through an app. So the Mira app itself is going to be a Bluetooth-based app. You're only going to be able to operate that inside the coach. We also have the option of getting a Eclipse app, which will allow you to operate your coach anywhere based off the internet. So a couple options that we have to look for there. All right, so that kind of sums up what we have on the Firefly screen. Let's go ahead and move down to the Victron screen and take a look at that. All right, so on the Victron screen here, this is going to be your home page. This is giving us our status of where we're at. This front top left corner here is going to be the grid, so that is basically telling us what we're connected to. If we have shore power here, we are connected to shore power. That gives us our reading here of line 1. Now, we're only using line 1 as the circuit, the inverted circuit, to display, so you are going to have 0 on line 2. This is the inverter down in the basement. It's giving you your status lights. That's the yellow and the green, so we'll get in depth of that as well. And then our AC loads right now, we're actually consuming 416 watts of power. This coming out of the inverter, these little bubbles you see, is the direction that electricity is flowing. So we are currently charging right now. We are at 14.7 volts, 19.5 amps. The battery state of charge is at 100%. To go into some of the settings, just to give you a little idea of how this works, this is going to be our home page. If you tap the screen, you get 2 icons down here. By pressing the menu button, will take us into the devices that are connected to it. So this is your inverter itself. We can go into the inverter and we can see some data on that. Again, we will go in depth in a later video to show you all the different things we can do and also how to connect to this. They do have an app and a portal that we would want to connect to be able to get that information for you. So something that we're going to go into another video and show you. We just wanted to give you the overview of what this controller was. This is your Victron energy controller that is displaying your status of your charging system on the coach.